Welcome back, everybody. So here is our last and final presentation by Genna Saunders, and she is going to be talking about the feasibility of implementing public operational trust. It's a long title, and I will let her explain the of that. So without further ado, Genna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so as Juliana just said, my title is a bit of a mouthful, but you will come to see why. My name is Genna Saunders. My pronouns are she, her. My host organization is Transition Town Peterborough, with host supervisors Fred Irwin and Andrea Connell. And Ryan Sisson is my CBR supervisor. And my faculty mentor is Professor Roger Picton of the Trent School of the Environment. So a little bit about me. I'm in my fourth year of a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and Geography. I'm affiliated with Champlain College, and I'm Champlain till I die. And I was initially attracted to this project because I have a large interest in community development and how we interact with both the natural and built environment. So this project is an extension of Transition Town's original trust proposal for the $5 million sale of PDI last year. And Transition Town's proposal suggested that the proceeds of the sale from PDI go towards a public operational trust, or a POT, as I will be investigating it. So in this context, a POT is a form of a public investment trust, which is a sum of money that would exist to specifically build community resilience and promote economic localization. So the purpose of my project is to determine if this POT is feasible to implement within the Peterborough community. And the approach of this trust is modeled after the permaculture operating system, which is a system that builds community into its design and focuses on enhancing local resources. And this works in balance with the 4Es framework, which many people in environmental science may have come across in their classes. But this means that all decisions consider how energy, environment, economy, and equity interconnect. And my report will be presented to the City of Peterborough when it is completed. And I have a little flowchart here to break down the process. So there are currently 3 proposed funding sources, including a small percentage of city and county annual operating budget, the proceeds from PDI, and the Kawartha Loon Exchange. And a 4th potential funding source that is not listed here are public donations. And funding from these sources would be stored within the POT and then further distributed to local beneficiaries that fall within the 4Es framework. As for my research questions, I'm looking at, is a POT permissible within the Ontario Municipal Act? And if not, what changes need to be made to the Act to create a POT? Can citizens act as beneficiaries? Would this trust be able to accept donations from the public, as I just mentioned? And could the City and County of Peterborough assume ownership of the Kawartha Local Loon Exchange? As for my research methods, my research approach was through non-experimental qualitative data collections. And my first and main research method was desktop research, including literature reviews and environmental scans, which have been ongoing for me kind of here at my desk for the last 2 semesters. And my second method of research was performing semi-structured key informant interviews with city and county legal staff. And for this, I had to create an ethics review, and later on, I transcribed the interviews through a third-party app. So I have some preliminary research findings, as my report isn't done yet. So I found so far that if the funds from PDI were used to create this POT, it could only feasibly operate under either one of the city or county at this time. And it could likely not be used for climate emergencies. Instead, the beneficiaries would be citizens, nonprofit organizations, charities, and local businesses who could apply for funding from this POT to fund their own sustainability initiatives. So based off of those findings, I do have some recommendations. And those are that Peterborough should implement a POT to support climate adaptability as a response to the climate and energy crisis, and to adequately support the entire Peterborough region as opposed to one municipal body, as I just mentioned. Future work around this POT needs to involve all municipal leaders. And finally, a solid trust criteria needs to be established that achieves the objectives of the 4Es, which again were equity, environment, economy, energy. So why this research is important. So if you are part of the Peterborough community, this research is for you, and it's something that I would definitely like you to have on your mind. So I've included a little photo of my community within the colleges here at Trent. And this is a community that I hold very near and dear to my heart. And every single person in that photo and their well-being matters to me. And the ongoing climate crisis and associated injustices definitely create a level of concern for me and how my community is able to handle them. So as a community member or a student here at Trent or in Peterborough, you should have a say in where the money in your community is being spent. So if you align with the purpose and goals of this project, this trust is definitely worth your attention. So instead of just being interested in this topic, I definitely encourage you to look into Transition Town's original trust proposal and think about where you would like either the funds from PDI to go or how you would like to see our community deal with future climate adaptability and sustainability. And that is all.
That's amazing, Genna. Thank you so much. I definitely, your passion about this topic is palpable. So you can definitely tell that you have, this is something that's very, very important to you and you're quite passionate about. And you called us all to action. There's a definite call to action where, we get to not just sit and listen, where we get to be active participants in, your research to help address those funds. So with that call to action, let's just expand on that a little bit. If an individual, sees this presentation and thinks, oh yes, I can be a part of this, what would you think, would be the best first step for somebody to take action? Who do they contact? What do they think about when they're thinking about these funds and where they should be allocated?
As I mentioned, city and corporate county legal staff, there was actually a working group that was working to decide where the initial proceeds from PDI would go. So if you were to Google City of Peterborough PDI working group or city councilors, there should be a list of people that would come up that you could your concerns to if you want like a breakdown of where that money is going. They have also released a number of reports on that, but in terms of actually like getting in contact with them, their account or their information is usually publicly available. But definitely that working group would be the best first step.
Great. That's great advice. And you just mentioned that, you've kind of just scratched the surface of your research. So what are your next steps? What's your next sort of actionable items for you to take this research a bit more forward?
Sorry, in terms of just like doing more research or like how the report's going to be used?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, both.
Okay. So my research, something that I need to do a little bit more of is just finishing up with some environmental scans. I'm currently looking at other regions such as like the Toronto Atmospheric Fund, the Greater Peterborough Community Foundation. Those are both great examples of where this has happened before and kind of like the similar framework. So I'm going to be finishing up my report with talking about places like those. And after the report's actually done, Transition Town is hoping to take the findings of this report and propose it to the city. And if the city or the county aren't interested, it's also available to use as a framework for other community bodies.
And I think that's the biggest thing is the research that you are doing and all of our other student researchers are doing really does have a tremendous impact in, policy change and moving things forward. So, good for you. We do have a question from our audience. Would a POT still work if the largest source of funding, a PDI sale, was not available? Interesting question.
Yeah, so that is something that we want it to work without the funding from PDI. Ideally, the funding from PDI would be used as an endowment towards this, but something that Transition Town has proposed is that 1%, 1 to 2% of both Peterborough and Peterborough County and city's operating budget go towards this trust. And I think in 5 years, they want it to increase up to 3%. So that ideally would be the main source of funding if the funds from PDI don't go towards this. But as I was saying earlier, if the funds from PDI do go towards this fund, there would have to be some negotiation between the city and the county because the funds from PDI are capital funds. So in order for them to join together,
right,
that would require like a lot of like working through.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I hope that answered your question. But if not, then
I think you did a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Questions here, and then we're going to open it up because I know there's a question for Rachel and Aaron as well. So as a student researcher, why do you feel the community-based research is important? How will the process prepare you for your future? Oh, this is really good. This is how is this going to benefit future Genna? Yeah,
I can definitely relate to this question. At the beginning, I mentioned that I'm in environmental science and geography, and I've never taken a business class in my life, and personally am not the best at financing. So this project for me opened up a lot more to what environmental science and geography is, because you can't really do one thing without the other. You can't do environmental initiatives without financing them, or looking into like what other communities are doing. And you can't do it if you don't have an understanding of policy. So something that this project really allowed me to do was to look into like financial structures, see how money is being used, like what criteria it's being used for, and like that really put things into a lot of context for me, especially being outside of the classroom, where I'm learning like a lot of things in theory. So
yeah, you've touched on a lot of great experiential learning aspects. Like it's hands-on learning that, you wouldn't have got a chance to do, through your theoretical work. So that's amazing. And then, putting yourself in that position where it's a tiny bit uncomfortable and allowing yourself for some personal growth on the, the financial literacy piece of this. So that's incredible. Thanks so much, Genna. But please stick around because there may be more questions coming through. But Rachel, I see you still hanging around here. If you want to show us, that would be great. And I do have a question. Yes, Rachel and Aaron, amazing.
Okay. I got kicked out, so.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're back. Here's a question that we didn't get to at the end of your presentation. Was the level of education of the participants tracked? Interesting to see if a greater science knowledge correlates with greater acceptance of expert opinions on vaccine safety. Lovely question.
Yeah, so in our pre-screening survey, we based it on demographics that we knew would be more vaccine hesitant. So we asked in our pre-screening survey what your level of education was, what your occupation was. We asked, what else did we ask? How many dependents do you have? Help me out, Rachel. What else do we ask?
Yeah, gender, that kind of thing, your age group.
Yeah, so it was a couple questions. It wasn't a long survey. I think it was 9 questions in total. But it did help us kind of narrow down on who we wanted to focus on specifically for our focus group, and yeah, who we were most interested in talking to.
Yeah, it was definitely the better educated people, or there was a couple people that had like science backgrounds. They were definitely more apt to accept, science-based knowledge, or like they really liked peer-reviewed articles. Actually came up a lot for people that had a background like an undergraduate or whatnot. So there's definitely correlation there.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. And that's a great question from our audience. So with that, everybody, I'm going to wrap up our second round of presentations. You all did amazingly well. Thank you so much for being here and the energy and your effort you're putting into your research that is not only great for you, your future, and Trent, but our community as well. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay, attendees, stick around. We're going to be having our presentations happening soon. So we'll see you in a moment. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.